Hello and welcome. I'm Claire Feldman, your host and guide on this journey to thriving in private practice without the burnout. Are you a passionate therapist who's struggling with the entrepreneurial side of things? Do you wish you could serve great fit clients at times that suit you? Are you seeking financial stability so you can continue doing what you love? If so, then you're in the right place. My own journey started back in 2012 when I qualified as a CBT therapist. I've experienced the challenges of setting up a private practice, from accommodating clients at all hours to dealing with unclear policies and undercharging for my services. It was a tough road, but it led me to where I am today, a successful eating disorder practitioner who has learned not only to value my work, but also to connect with my dream clients. I know firsthand the difficulties of navigating the business aspects of therapy, from building a website to managing social media. But I've made the mistake so you don't have to. Together, we'll explore how you can build and grow your dream practice. So let's get started. So hello everybody and welcome to this episode, which is a little bit of a reflective conversation. It's not really been planned out. I'm doing this a little bit off the cuff. The idea came to me when I was out walking my dog and I was just kind of pondering what 2023 has been like, and I would like to say something really profound about it, but the only thing I can come up with was it was shite, wasn't it? I'd love something like with real deep meaning to it and something, that is inspiring, but just shite is the only phrase that I can come up with. And I sort of thought actually maybe it might be helpful to just be really transparent with the fact that it's been a really difficult year, and to maybe talk about some of the things I maybe noticed or some of the things that I even learned personally over the last year, and then maybe some kind of thoughts that I have about how we move on from this. The year that has been, how do we kind of navigate our way out of it? How do we move into 2024 and hope that things are going to change and that things are going to be better for everyone, because that's what we want really. So, as I say, this is not very well thought out, but just bear with me, and I hope that you find it helpful. So I think that's the first thing, is that really acknowledging what a difficult year it actually has been. And it's been a real challenging stance for an awful lot of counsellors and therapists, because so many people are caught in this place of qualifying, trying to find paid work, it either being far too competitive or they don't have enough hours to qualify for these organisations. So the only option that people really have then is to go into private practice, and then what they're experiencing is they're going into private practice full of hope, full of excitement, and then really struggling to find clients, because they're, number one, in a saturated market. There's lots of counsellors and there's lots of therapists, but also primarily because of the cost of living crisis this year, that people have been much more hesitant about where they're investing money. People have been holding off making decisions like investing in therapy. So there has been a huge downturn in referrals and inquiries for people. And I think that's really difficult. Like, if you are a counsellor or therapist that has started in private practice in 2023, I really feel for you, because you might be having a lot of inner dialogue going on about your capability, assuming that you are doing something wrong, assuming that you're never going to be successful in private practice, you're never going to get the clients that you need. And I think I just want to say to you, that yes, it has been a really, really challenging year it's not a reflection of you or your capabilities at all. This has been something that has been experienced across the board in all industries. And I have a mentor myself, and I'm a member of other memberships, different memberships. I'm in a membership that is filled predominantly with dietitians and nutritionists and other holistic practitioners and things. And they're all experiencing exactly the same. So pretty much every industry, every service-based industry is experiencing the same thing. So it's not a personal thing about you. It's got nothing to do with your capabilities. It's just the reality of what this year has been. So that being said, that definitely there have been learnings that I would take away from this year around, I guess, what it means to build a sustainable private practice. And I think for me, it is that realization that everything you're doing is about planting seeds for the long term. And I think what there's been maybe in the past, prior to kind of these last few years, that there would have been an expectation that you're marketing your private practice, you're building your private practice, would have almost been like a one and done type of activity, that you would, just build your website and just write on your directory profile. That's it, job done, you've marketed, and then the clients all kind of will come flooding in. I think the learning from this year most definitely has been those days do not exist anymore, that we do have to be more actively involved in the marketing of our practice, in the building and growing of our private practices. And it's something that we have to do consistently and get more comfortable in doing it. And I think with a lot of the people that I've worked with over the last year, there's been this sense of maybe frustration in themselves, that they feel like they're doing all the right things, that they're showing up on social media, that they're rewriting their directory profiles, they're building their websites, and they feel like they're doing all of the right things, but it's not resulting in clients coming through the door, or inquiries coming in immediately. And I think, like, for me, what I've been trying to really do a lot of over the last year is managing expectations, helping my clients to understand that a lot of the time now, what we need to be kind of focusing on is relationship building, that somebody isn't necessarily going to just see your website and book a call with you immediately. It might be that they check out your website. It might be they sign up for a free offer that you have on your website. It might be they go and have a little look at your social media, that they maybe watch a video that you've done. They might need several touch points of your content. They might need time. They might be considering their decision. So the point of them getting to deciding that they want to invest in working with you, that it's much more common now that there has maybe been some sort of a connection or some sort of a relationship perhaps that has been built up over time. And so that's how we need to approach it, from a business perspective, that these things that we do are not just one and done kind of throwaway activities, that everything we're doing is about building connection, and by building relationships with potential clients, and that we can do that through various means, whether that be through the content that we have on our social media, whether that be through having a newsletter or an email that we offer kind of nurturing content and regular updates through, whether that be through your blog writing, whether that be through having your own podcast, that there are many different ways that you can kind of build up that connection, and foster that kind of that know, like, and trust factor that is so important nowadays. And I think, like, when I first started, so going back like 11 or 12 years ago when I first started in private practice, the whole just throwing together an ad on Yellow Pages or throwing up a crappy website kind of thing, like that was okay. That was sufficient back then. It's not sufficient now. We live in different times. Our clients have different expectations. Our clients often want to work with a therapist that has a specialism or expertise in the area of difficulty that they're having, and they often want to make sure, they want to suss the therapist out and get a good sense of whether they believe that they would work well together and that there's a connection there. So that's kind of our duty and our responsibility to realize now that we're responsible for marketing our practice. We're responsible for taking actions that are going to help us have a private practice that is successful and that is also sustainable. And I appreciate that can feel really difficult when it feels like you're trying things and it's not materializing. But it's also about having faith that everything that you're doing, as long as you're clear on the intention behind what you're doing, that even if it's not going to pay off for you right in the moment, like right now, that this could be something that pays off for you 6 months from now or a year from now. Whether that be that you go to a networking meeting, whether that be that you take the initiative to organise a little Zoom networking session with other counsellors in your local area, whether that be posting leaflets in different places that like these actions may not result in the right now, but they can result in the future. And that, I guess, for me, the biggest learning I had in my own private practice was seeing the results of things that I started maybe at the start of the year only starting to come into fruition now. So my biggest example of that would be with blog writing, that in April time I set about very intentionally to start blog writing, to try and increase my SEO for my website. The main reason I wanted to do that was because I didn't want to be in a position where I relied solely on Psychology Today for my referrals coming in. Most of them do come in through Psychology Today, but as we know, it is a more saturated market, and I didn't want to rely solely on a directory profile to get my clients from. I work mostly remotely and all over the UK. So I needed to think of ways to kind of market myself smarter. So my specialism, my niche is binge eating. So I kind of set about trying to write a quality blog once a month and get it on my website, make sure that it was properly optimized. I used a little bit of help with that with the people that do my website. They helped me kind of make sure that it was optimized. And the great thing about that is I was able to see month on month the increase in traffic, organic traffic, going to my website. So I think that prior to me doing the blog writing, the only traffic that was actually going to my website was traffic that was coming directly from either Google My Business or from Psychology Today. What I can now see is that I'm getting over 200 visits a month, but they're organic visits that aren't coming through those other kind of referral sources. And what I've had in probably the last 6 weeks is inquiries from 3 people who have found me just from doing a Google search and not coming through Psychology Today. So that for me is brilliant, because that's my evidence now that I'm starting to build up that traffic, that I can start to get people coming directly to my website. So that if, God forbid anything were to happen with Psychology Today, or if it just became too saturated, that actually I'm generating my own clients anyway. So that was something that started back in April, and it could have been really easy for me to be like, oh, I can't be bothered writing this blog, or this is a pointless exercise. And actually it's taken from April until now for me to see any kind of results from that. The great thing about things like blogs is that blogs, they don't have an expiry date on them. So if you write a good quality blog, it might be that blog will actually drive traffic to your website and continue to drive traffic to your website a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line. So that has been a really worthwhile investment of my time. The other thing that that has also helped with is that this year I created hypnotherapy audios that were available to buy on my website, and also a self-study program as well. And usually, not every week, but most weeks, I get a little ping from PayPal, which tells me somebody has bought a hypnotherapy recording, or someone has bought a bundle of recordings, or someone has bought a self-study program. And there is no nicer feeling than getting that little ping, that little PayPal bell going, and knowing that you've just earned money for doing nothing. It's a lovely feeling. We're not talking massive amounts, we're not talking that I'm able to retire or anything like that, but it's really nice just to have those little trickles of income kind of coming in. So those are kind of things that I set about doing very intentionally, that didn't appear to have any immediate benefit to me, but that are starting to kind of pay off for me now. So when I kind of think about my recommendations for counsellors and therapists now, and moving into 2024, I would be recommending really trying to think like more strategically around your business. I think what happens is we get caught up in the excitement of opening our private practice. We get caught up in the excitement of what my website's going to look like and what colors, my branding's going to be, or we go down rabbit holes and spend hours on Canva, creating our logos and things. We get caught up in all of that stuff, like the nice stuff, or what we could maybe call the fluffy stuff. But maybe what we need to do is spend a bit more time really thinking about the long-term vision for your private practice, what you might want that to look like in terms of how often you're going to be working, what type of clients you're going to be working with. Are you going to just work on a one-to-one model, or could you see yourself perhaps running group workshops? Could you see yourself doing retreats? Could you see yourself offering online courses, prepaid webinars, recordings? That there's a whole host of other things that potentially you might want to do for your private practice, and you might want to move beyond the kind of the one-to-one model. And so I think it's always good that right from the beginning that you could be thinking like that, thinking strategically, thinking about the vision for your practice, thinking about what your ideal is of how you would like it to look, and then that you work backwards. And so that you've got kind of a clear strategy from the beginning of what it is that you're working towards, what that's going to look like. And so every time you're taking an action, every time you're doing something, you really want to try and make sure that there's a purpose behind it, and that it's aligned with what your ultimate vision and what your ultimate goal is for your private practice. And that can be really helpful in, I guess, stopping you going down loads of different rabbit holes, or spending time investing in things, time and energy that isn't going to actually have any impact on your private practice at all. And that goes for everything. That goes for, your content that you post on social media, that we just move away from posting for the sake of it, or posting just to be visible, to actually there's an intention behind and a purpose behind why I'm doing this, and everything is about leading this potential client and guiding them towards possibly engaging in one of my services, or buying a product, or completing my program. That everything has a purpose that's designed to kind of to help someone get to a decision. So that would be kind of, and that's really something that we're not taught that when we're doing our training. We're not taught how to think strategically. We're not taught about the business aspects of our private practice at all. So much energy is put into the legalities and GDPR and all of that sort of stuff, which yes, it's important, but I don't think it's just one aspect of it. The bigger thing is, how do we think more like a business owner? Because this is what we are. We are business owners, and we need to treat our private practice appropriately. And that kind of leads to my next thing. And this is something that I still get squirmy about, and it can make us feel uncomfortable. But if we are treating our private practice more like a business, then we do need to follow through with the policies that we set. So I'm talking about things like your cancellation policies, that if you have it kind of clearly written, that you have, 24 hours or 48 hours notice, whatever it may be, that you actually are following through with that boundary. Because if you, and I have 100% been guilty of this myself as well, if you have a tendency to be making decisions to not charge a cancellation fee because you might be telling yourself a story of, oh, but there are really, they were really genuinely sick, or, they really have a lot going on, so I understand why they couldn't make it. If you think about how many times you have waived your cancellation fee, how many times you've done that over the course of the year, and if you were to actually do that calculation of how many times have I waived my cancellation fee, and you were to add that amount up, I bet you would find that it's quite a significant amount of money. And that's essentially lost money for your business. So that would be my next thing that I would be recommending. If you don't have kind of crystal clear policies in place around your cancellations and late cancellations, if you don't have crystal clear policies around that, make sure you do get them in place and that you're communicating them to your clients, both through written form and then also in the first session that you have with them. My personal recommendation, this is how I prefer to work, is that I always take payment in advance. And so it just makes it, for me, much easier that when I am enforcing a late cancellation, the payment has already been made rather than trying to go after and be chasing for payment after. So that's what I tend to prefer. It's entirely up to you how you do it, but that's what I would kind of recommend. Just make sure you're holding that boundary around your policies for that. My next thing to think about for 2024 is adaptability. So I've already kind of touched on, are you going to work on just a one-to-one model, or other things that you could perhaps think about? So something that I noticed as well this year is that most of my clients will work with me on a one-to-one basis, but I also offer breakthrough sessions, which are like half-day kind of intensive sessions. And that was something that kind of prior to 2023 wouldn't have been something I would have sold an awful lot of, that people would have. It would have been more people just came to work with me long term. And I don't know if this is maybe as a result of the cost of living crisis, but I've actually done a number of breakthrough sessions over this year, because I think it was a more cost-effective way for people to kind of get some support and dip their toe into therapy and kind of get some tools, coping strategies and things to help them that they could then kind of go away with, and then potentially maybe come back to therapy at a later date or a later time. So you could think about, given what the current climate is, are there ways that you can be more adaptable in the services that you offer? So things like offering longer kind of single sessions, or offering kind of like the half day kind of breakthrough type sessions, or doing group therapy or group workshops, and potentially then being able to offer, I guess, a variety of ways that people can maybe work with you and get support with you that might more fit their needs and their circumstances. Obviously, you're under no obligation to do that, and what I would probably recommend most people is kind of work on building up your one-to-one practice probably first, and then when you feel like you've kind of got that stability in your one-to-one practice, and that you've got maybe a fairly good audience around things like your social media, or you have an email list, that generally that's when it might be a good time to think about being more adaptable in the service that you offer, and maybe considering things like group programs and workshops and things like that. The next thing that I recommend for 2024 is around experiencing setbacks, and that we don't we get too hung up in making things personal and about us. So again, I've seen this not just for myself, because I've definitely experienced this as well, but for mentoring clients that I've worked with, that they might try something out and it doesn't quite go according to plan, whether that be delivering a program or a course or trying to launch something, and then it hasn't gone 100% the way that they would like it to go, and they automatically turn that into a failure and a reason to give up and say it as, well, that just didn't work for me and there's no point in doing that. And certainly I know for me in the past, I'm a lot better now than what I used to be, but in the past it used to be if I did something and I didn't get maybe the numbers signing up, or it didn't go that well, I could really hang out in despair for a long time and really be licking my wounds, and it just be the reason to quit, to give up and not try again. And now what I've become much, much better at, mainly thanks to working with my own mentor, is completely reframing these experiences, that they're absolutely nothing to do with me or my ability, that every single time we experience these things, that we take learning from them, that there are no failures, that there are only learning opportunities. And so when things don't quite go according to plan, that becomes the fire in my belly to be like, right, what can I learn from that, and how can I do things differently going forward to change the outcome of that. And so the big word that I have in my mind for 2024 is resilience, is this ability, despite maybe trying things, having setbacks, obstacles being in the way, that it's so important that everything we do, we learn from, we get up again, we change our strategy, we change our direction, and based on what we've learned, we then move forward. And I think resilience is going to be, after the year we've had in 2023, resilience is going to still be needed into 2024. I am sure there are going to be brighter days ahead. Things are going to improve. Things will not stay the same forever, because nothing stays the same forever. So I am hopeful that things will become more positive and everything will become better in time. But the reality of going into 2024 is there are still difficult days and difficult times ahead of us. And resilience is the thing that I want us all to hold in the forefront of our minds, in that things may not happen as quickly as you would like them to, and that does not mean that it's pointless. That does not mean that there's no point even in trying. That does not mean that you're never going to have the private practice that you really want and desire. What that just means is you're going to learn how to navigate building your private practice and growing your private practice through challenging times. And if you can do this through challenging times, then when times aren't so challenging, you're going to be so grateful for the groundwork and the foundations that you have laid in your private practice. And so really thinking about getting clear on your vision for your practice, getting really clear on what your strategy is going to be, getting really clear in that it is going to take some time, but that everything that you're doing is like planting little seeds, and that these are little seeds that are going to grow and blossom at some point in the future, even if you can't quite see the little shoots coming up right away, that they're going to be things that are going to pay off for you in the future. My final recommendation, and it's a little bit of a shameless plug for myself, would be to invest in mentorship. It is without doubt the best thing that I have ever done. I invested in mentorship last year, and then have continued throughout this year on a more of an ad hoc basis. Last year I worked with somebody kind of one-on-one quite intensely for 6 months. This year it has been on more of an ad hoc basis that I've worked with a mentor. But for me, that is just so helpful, because sometimes you can't see outside your own perspective of things, and you get caught up in your own story of things. And it can be so helpful then to work with someone else who, number one, can kind of call you out on your own BS when you're getting caught up in your own story, but who can also just show you a different perspective of things, can show you a different way of things, who can help you foster greater belief in yourself, and who can give you guidance around doing things because they've maybe walked the path before you, or they're a few steps ahead of you. That can be so helpful, because when you see that someone else has done something that you want to do, you know it's possible then for you. So if that's something, if you have kind of big dreams for your private practice, if you have these aspirations of maybe leaving behind EAP work or doing things that you don't enjoy, I would highly recommend, if it's not me, that's cool, but I would highly recommend that you do invest in working with a mentor, someone who has maybe walked the path ahead of you, has experience of building a private practice, a sustainable private practice, who has experience around marketing and doing all the things that you want to do. I really kind of would recommend that you do think about that. If you are interested in working with me, you can, of course, send me a little DM. You can find me on the Enriched Practice via Instagram or within my Facebook group. I have a free community called the Enriched Practice, and certainly get in contact with me and I can send you some information. But that is it. So for being a little bit of an off-the-cuff podcast, I've ended up talking for around 30 minutes or so on my reflections of what I think for how 2023 has been, and maybe some things that we want to really consider for 2024. So I hope that has been helpful for you. If you're listening to this, it's probably going to come out, this episode, kind of around end of December time. So I hope, if you're listening in real time, that you have an absolutely wonderful new year, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care. Bye.